Hello, everyone. I'm Waqas Malik, a forgiveness coach, and welcome to this insightful interview with Sorrel Pindar, a transformational coach specializing in guiding professional women through challenges in their relationships. Sorrel, it's a pleasure to have you here.
I am so I'm so pleased to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me, Waqas.
You are welcome. So, my first question is to you Sorrel, your journey from personal struggles to becoming a transformational coach is both inspiring and profound. Can you share more about the turning point that led you to discover the inside out understanding of experience and ultimately transform your life and well being?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I was working as an osteopath and I had a patient who told me about Jamie Smart and said, you should really check this guy out. And I did. And I have spent a lot of time training with Jamie. But I guess I met him for the first time in 2017 or 2018. I'm not sure. I did the Thriving Coaches Blueprint with him first, and then I went on to do Clarity Coach certification, and then the Advanced Clarity Advanced Coach and Facilitator program, which I have repeated as well, and then finally the Clarity Professionals program. So yeah, and actually what I realized is that initially you get an intellectual understanding of the principles and the inside out nature of things. And then it takes time to sort of embed so that you start to kind of live it rather than just thinking about it. So yeah, I had plenty of time to get there.
Right. You mentioned helping clients with challenges such as poor self-confidence, fear of uncertainty, and people pleasing. Could you share a success story or case where your 90-day program, Reveal, Befriend, Empower, led to a transformative journey and the discovery of inner resilience in someone's life?
Yeah, so I was going to tell you, I'm obviously not going to use her real name. A client I've been working with called Kelly, and she's had a lot of anxiety in her life since she was a child, really. What we've discovered together is that her resilience comes from her creativity, her love of color, and the ability to represent things visually. So one of the things that really landed for Kelly was when I said, look, these fingers moving, they are your thoughts. Your thumb is who you are. You can either be caught up in your thoughts and trapped within them, or you can stand at the side and watch them. And so what we've discovered is lots of different ways of representing things visually and using color. And that's brought out her inner resilience so that she's starting to be able to take some distance from her anxiety rather than being caught up in it.
Right. The power of fear and self-limiting beliefs can be significant obstacles. How do you guide your clients to overcome these mental barriers and connect with their innate well-being without delving into the past or getting lost in old stories?
Yeah, this is a really important thing, I think, because so many people do get lost in old stories. Well, the first thing I want people to understand is that they created those beliefs to keep them safe. I think many of us walk around with the notion that somebody injected me with these beliefs from outside, which is very outside in, and we know that it's an inside out process. And so maybe they created those beliefs as children to keep them safe, and now they're not so useful as adults. So it's acknowledging that it's their own creation, and at the same time that they aren't so useful. And then it's like holding it all lightly. One of the things I love, I don't know if you know Liz Gilbert, but she wrote a book called Big Magic, which is mostly written for artists, writers, creative people, but we're all creative. And she talks about you can't get rid of fear. You're never going to get rid of fear, but you can put it in the back seat and make sure it keeps its hands off the controls. So it's like, what have you done in your life? Well, I'm speaking to a client, but I can speak to you the same way, where you acted in spite of fear, that you took fear along for the ride because you had no choice, but you kept fear off the controls. And I guess that's kind of how I deal with that sort of thing. because fear is there for a good reason. It's there to keep us safe. You know, it's like the sort of the reptilian brain, which we all have, believes that we're surrounded by wolves. And yet we know that that's not true, but it's very hard not to act from that position. So that's why I say hold it lightly, because it's never going to go away.
Right. You emphasize the importance of a natural and laid back approach in your coaching. How does this approach help individuals find peace, happiness, and freedom in their mental health journeys? And what unique strengths do you bring to your coaching practice?
I would say my unique strengths are my ability to listen. I mean, I'm really, really good at listening, and people comment on that all the time. And I do that without any judgment, because there's no point in being judgmental. And obviously, as a coach, you don't want to be judgmental. And sort of compassion, and people tell me that I have a sort of quite a tender approach, which I didn't realize until they pointed it out to me, which is interesting. But the other thing, which makes a huge difference, is that I have this kind of unwavering belief in their innate well-being. And you know what? When I worked as an osteopath, it worked really well there as well, because once I started believing that my patients would heal because they had that innate well-being, they started healing much more quickly than they had before I'd got that. And I got that from Jamie, so back in 2018. And the other thing is that I don't stick to a set program. So my program always evolves with my client. It's always really tailored. I mean, there's some kind of general principles, because there are certain things that are probably better to coming at the beginning. Like, you know, what are your values? If you don't know what your values are and you're still holding on to somebody else's values that you inherited as a child, then that's going to hold you back. So getting that clarity. But after that, it pretty much follows what the client needs. And I feel like it's almost like a guided journey, because usually they're experiencing things that I've experienced. It's like I attract people who are going through the kind of challenges that I've been through.
Right. So in your work, you mentioned the zone of mystery, magic, and miracles. Can you share an example of a profound transformation or miracle you have witnessed in a client's life, and what contributed to this remarkable change?
So I was thinking about a lady I worked with last year. I'll call her Esther, not her real name. She had been widowed, I think, 2 to 2.5 years beforehand. And she had a tremendous trauma from her childhood. And she was really kind of deep in the grief of the loss of her husband. And various other things were happening in her life at the same time. And she really wasn't, you know, she didn't have her hands on the steering wheel of her life. And I think we worked together about 6 months. And during that time, she gradually started to connect with her own power, if you like. And I eventually had an email from her saying, no longer the grieving widow. I forget what word she used now, but it's like she's powerful. She's actually found her own power. So she's transformed from being this like quite sort of shut down, afraid. She's opened out. She's in control. She's got a totally new life. And that for me was an amazing transformation.
Amazing. So what aspects of relationship renewal do you find most effective in helping clients improve their relationships?
I think the biggest thing is what I call, well, it's not just me, but it's called relational mindfulness, which is that whenever you're deciding what to say, what to do, how to be with your partner, you're keeping the relationship itself center stage. Some people call it kind of going from me to we. So it's for me, for me personally, I have in my current relationship, which is the 4th one, it's the first time that I've started to recognize that I can do that. I can say, okay, this would be great for me, but he won't like it, and our relationship will suffer. And therefore, to move into what will be good for both of us, to be good for our relationship. So there's that. And I would say curiosity about yourself as well as about your partner, compassion, a willingness to listen with nothing else on your mind. So these are all kind of coachy things, aren't they? There's something else that went through my head and out the other side. Oh, but the other thing is, like, self-care. So start with the fact that you need to look after yourself, and you need to love yourself and care for yourself. Because if you don't do any of that, how can you expect anyone else to do it for you? We should not be outsourcing those things to somebody else. But it's not about being selfish. It's about recognizing that you are responsible for your own welfare. And of course, there are things that you can ask your partner to do for you or to help you with, and things you want from them in terms of love and care and being cherished and all those sorts of things. So it's a funny balance, actually. And I think getting that balance right is the key. And it's funny because I always say it's simple, but it's not easy. It requires practice. And the more willing you are to keep practicing, recognizing that the more you practice, the better it gets. The easier it gets, because with the practice, it starts to come, I guess it becomes second nature. And for me personally, the big thing was to stop thinking that I was right all the time. It's like, I finally realized, oh my God, my partner, he's a veteran and he's a man. And then I was thinking, well, that can't be right. And I think, well, how could I know more about veterans than he does? That's nonsense. So, and it was the day I thought to myself, there are 8 billion people on this planet. I cannot possibly be right all the time. And then to say that to myself whenever I caught myself starting to think, oh, hang on a minute, surely that can't, oh, it probably is right, because I don't know everything. So, but that's my personal thing. But I think it's big. I think it's particularly, actually for men and women. It's not just women. But I work more with women, so I know more about women's experience.
Wonderful. So, what are the core principles or methods that you believe are most beneficial when applying Reveal, Befriend, and Empower in your coaching practice?
You know what? The whole point about the title of that program is that, first of all, you're uncovering what it is you've been believing that's been holding you back. So, like the limiting beliefs we talked about earlier. And then you're befriending those limiting beliefs or fears or patterns of behavior. Like, okay, I can befriend the fact that I wanted to believe that I was right all the time, even though it was clearly nonsense, because it was something that I created. So what I'm saying is that all of these things where we're shooting ourselves in the foot and holding ourselves back, those are things that we created from our innate wisdom. And that's the empowerment part, because when you realize that you created it because it made sense to you at the time, probably from the understanding of an 8-year-old or something, and it kept you safe at a time when you needed it. And then you can recognize that, well, it doesn't actually work for me now. And then you can create something which is new and functional. And I remember when I was training with Jamie, there was a guy on the course called Rob Morgan. And he said in a session one time, well, we all create stories all the time. We can't not create stories. So we might as well create functional stories. And, that stayed with me all the years since that day. Because, yeah, we do. We create stories all the time. So why not create something that works for us rather than something that doesn't?
Amazing. Looking ahead, what's your vision for the future in your role as a life coach and therapist? How do you plan to continue helping professionals, women, and others find the loving closeness, courage, and transformation they long for in their lives?
There's 2 things. One is to continue working one-to-one. But I also want to put together a group program for women, so that I can reach more women. And I'm also, next year, I'll be offering a group program with a colleague. So he's a man. We both went to boarding school, so we have that in common. So we have an understanding of the trauma as basically an abandonment trauma. It isn't the case for all people who go to boarding school, but it was for us, and it is for a lot of boarding school survivors. So that we're running a program next year, which will be for not just boarding school survivors, but anyone who experienced childhood abandonment or separation. And I'm training. I'm in the process of training to become a couples coach with the Relational Life Institute, which is based out in America, and they take a fairly unusual approach to couples work, which I like. So I want to be able to move into doing work with couples as well, because it's great working one-to-one, but obviously if you've got both of the people in the room and they both want to save their marriage, you're going to have much quicker results than if you're just working one-to-one. So that's kind of the next big step. And who knows what else might materialize in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Sorrel, for sharing your insights and experiences. Your dedication to helping others navigate their mental health and relationships challenges is truly commendable. We look forward to witnessing the continued positive impact you will have on the lives of many. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.